So, you know, the money the state pays is only a small portion. If you go into this new program, it'll pay 68%, 6% more than what it's now paying. So the federal government says we want to encourage more programs that have in-home services, personal assistance services, and help to keep people in the community first, community living first. And I think this is something that, you know, I feel really positive for us, and I think for most consumers, it's what they want to do too. Another program that I think is important to keep your eye on and to maybe you look at is the Money Follows the Person. This program has been operating in the state, and what it does is it allows people who are in nursing homes to get funds to take them out of nursing homes and help them make the transition into the community. Okay? You just can't come out of a nursing home after being there for a year or two without some help and some assistance, getting housing going, getting pieces in place. And that program recognizes that and helps people make that transition. They're extending that program and making it available even longer. Another question that comes up.
And again, could I throw in on that one? I think that's one where previously people had to be in the institution for 180 days or about 6 months. That's been changed now to 3 months, which puts more pressure on them to keep people, have them be in a nursing facility for a shorter period of time. The thing about Money Follows the Person is it's excellent for trying to get people who are already institutionalized, but we need to find a way to also divert people before they get in there. And I would just throw out, I'm not prepared enough with detail, and we didn't put it in the materials, I don't think, but for people who are familiar with institutionalization or going into a nursing facility, there's a data bank that has to be filled out within about 5 days of when people go into a nursing facility that's called the MDS, the minimum data set. There's a new section of that that's been put in called Q, MDSQ, and that's an overt question of, are you interested in moving back into the community? And there are laws in place already where supposedly placement in a nursing facility is supposed to be the last resort. We all know that that's not really functioning very well. But again, there might be ways to use this new section of the minimum data set to really connect with people who are newly entered into nursing facilities and try to help them understand that there's a program that could give you more support and bring you back in the community. And you only have to have been in this facility 3 months and you might be eligible for it. So.
What an innovative idea, consumer choice, huh? This is the kind of thing that I think is driving it, you know, to make sure that people know that they have a choice and we can structure services so they have the option to stay in the community first. There's a third kind of program that's going on in the state, and they're actually operating in about 5 or 6 different communities now, is the Aging, Disability, and Resource Center. This is the concept that says, hey, there are people who are at risk of going into a nursing home, but if we can find them and counsel them and help them get assistance into other services, we can keep them from going into those programs. And the ADRC program has been extended and is being expanded to include more counseling and support. It's the idea of creating a single point of entry for the whole service delivery system. Again, the concept is there, the support is there. Implementation isn't always been even across the state, but I think it's something to be aware of, because I think there are ways that you can help influence that and make it better meet the needs of you and the other consumers in your community. The other issue has been a problem for a long time, and Deborah's already talked about it a little bit. We find, why is it that in the long-term care arena, there are so many more people, such a higher percentage of people who need continuing care, who are Medicaid, versus the general population? Well, the reason is spend down and impoverishment. Once you start dealing with the high cost of continuing care, what assets you have get spent down very quickly. And you end up becoming Medicaid and coming into public assistance because the monies you did have got eaten up very, very quickly. Now that happens very fast in the nursing home, but if you have to pay for your own in-home services and your own help on an ongoing basis, that causes you to spend down resources very quickly. So the concept of class was to say, well, can we start providing an insurance program that can cover those costs of those in-home services and help people get them as part of an insurance program, alleviating the need to actually impoverish themselves in order to get the help they need. I think it's a concept that is very intriguing. It's a little bit like long-term care insurance, but long-term care insurance was selected only by a few and was a little bit expensive and did not get the wide support. CLASS is being structured more like a Part C of Medicare, where you have Part A and Part B. This is the long-term care part. I know I use a certain word Medicare Part C because there's another Part C already. But it's a concept we talked about in the 70s, a long-term care Medicare benefit. Isn't it kind of artificial to say, hey, when you need continuing care, that's not health care, but when you need acute care, it's all covered? Well, that's part of the strange thing that resulted. We had Medicare and Medicaid distinctions. So I think what CLASS is doing is trying to take a step forward and saying, can we now look at long-term care as part of an insurance program to cover people who need those services? I think the challenge of CLASS will be that it will take a few years to get established, but it may have a big impact on reducing Medicaid costs and making it really an insurance benefit for a lot of people. And those are some of the programs that are available now under the New Health Initiative that I think we should be aware of, because they are things that California can do if the state chooses to pursue them. Now, CLASS is going to be a federal activity, but the other programs are going to be things that the state will need to choose to do and do at what level. I think the other question I want to address today, though, is what do public authorities do to prepare or get involved in these programs? Now, first of all, does the public authority today have value? I've gotten very discouraged, having been involved with the development of public authorities and the ideals and the dreams in the 90s and very excited about what it can do. I find it under assault when people say, hey, public authority, that's administrative cost. It's not administrative cost, it's actual services. And we're not getting that message across. What is the public authority today? It helps consumers. It provides access to screened workers, including backup in some communities, and it provides support for consumers. That's a service, that's not an administrative task. What does it do? It provides workers training and orientation, it provides them reasonably good paying jobs, and it provides them health benefits. That's a real service to the community. And third, and sometimes most underappreciated, is it is an entity that's guided by consumers and designed to foster and support consumer choice and direction. In every community, they have aging programs and health programs. They're oriented towards either the agencies and service providers. But public authorities uniquely have the requirement of a 51% consumer board with the hope that consumers will direct its vision and direction. And I think that's a real asset that we want to be able to maintain and build on to make this a force in change in all these new community initiatives. Now, what can public authorities in their service role do beyond what they're now doing? And again, it will vary from public authority how much of each of those roles they play, but I think it's important to really establish their role as a strong and important service. Now, what can we do more under some of these new initiatives? There's an initiative on workforce development. There's federal monies coming in to help train workers to get into the home care field, and public authorities have been doing that. They're not getting involved in some of the workforce development monies to date, but I think they can be. They can start positioning themselves to do that. They also can identify for workforce development. It's not just getting people trained and oriented, it's getting people into a position where they can get the support they need to work in these roles. Home care is a very tough job. Sometimes it asks for a lot and it's very demanding, and you don't always get the support and help that you need. I think it's important to see that role further developed and to recognize that role the public authority could play there. Institutional transitions. Remember we talked about money follows the person. Well, can the public authority be a player in that role too? There's one public authority, I won't mention names, but the executive director is at the table, who has actually developed a mentorship program that provides training to consumers who are in nursing homes, who works with the nursing home programs and the waiver programs in the community to help serve as a mentor to consumers who are in nursing homes to help them transition out. If you've been in nursing homes for 4 or 10 or in some cases 20 years, managing a house, identifying a worker, hiring a worker, dealing with food, coordinating these tasks is really challenging. And I think by having a mentor, you can make that transition more successful and keep it established on a longer period of time. This is a concept that I think public authorities can do well because they're already doing it. And to recognize that they can do it in a proactive way for people who are not yet IHSS, but will become IHSS when they come up. Okay, a third kind of role is in the coordination of services. You know, a lot of the programs are calling for case managers to help people identify their needs and find their services. But I think it's an interesting question of, do we want case managers or do we want counselors who can help guide consumers find their choice and find their options? No one wants to be told what they should do. They want to know what they can do. And I think we can create new models of service coordination that give consumers, empower consumers to choose and to support that consumer choice process. A little bit that's been done in different parts of the country with cash and counseling models, but I think it's something that public authorities should explore as an expansion of a mentorship role or as an ongoing program. So in these new waiver programs, Community First, Choice, to look at what role the public authority wants to play in that. Finally, I think as we extend services to the middle class, I think there's a question of what is the public authority's role there? There were a couple of programs, a couple of public authorities said, hey, we have people who are near poor who need a worker. Can we give them a list of our workers so they can find a worker? They're willing to pay for it themselves. Can we do that? Well, right now, the state kind of discourages it. Saying, well, they're not IHSS yet. You can't use your resources to help them. But yet, if we're going to prepare for programs like CLASS, or today to play a more effective role with long-term care insurance programs, I think public authorities can make their services available to a broader population and help people not deteriorate to the point where they need to go to the institution first and spend down their monies and become Medicaid in order to get those services. So let's look at not saying how do we keep what we have, how do we build this concept of the service program in public authorities. It is in its infancy in its concept and its potential. And I think the power of the consumer to direct it helps give it a unique role to play in the overall process. So I guess the question that I want to go back to then is, what is your choice of what do you want? What is the future you want to see? Consumer choice has to be looked at in two ways, on an individual basis. How do we help people find their own solution? We're working with a program in Guam where they're doing this path model where people are helping to visualize what their life could be and how services could be coordinated around to help them achieve that. That's what consumer choice is all about, is helping people achieve their goals. And that's what we're trying to create service models that can enable that. Just because you have a chronic disability doesn't mean you don't have goals and you don't have the opportunity to choose and implement those. How do we create models that support that? Now the public authorities, I think, are unique because one, they have consumers who can make the choices for themselves. And they're empowered as a body to act in their community to make those choices. So I think, I gave you a quick background of some of the ideas and options, but now I throw it out to you. What are your choices? What do you want to do to help make some of that a reality?
Thank you, Rick, and I hope that this gives you a sense and an overview. I think one of the things I wanted to try to help convey to people is that we will begin to hear different options of ways public authorities could expand or become more central in provision in our own counties and our own locales. And I think we shouldn't be nervous about entertaining options that are coming up.